Written by brothers Jim and John Thomas and directed by John McTiernan, the first Predator film was released in 1987 to mixed critical reception. But despite that lackluster reception, it was financially successful, and it later established itself as a classic 80s action horror film. Its financial success prompted a sequel, Predator 2, 3 years later, which had a similarly mixed critical reception but was a box office failure. It was followed by 3 separate attempts to reboot the franchise over the next 30 years, the second of which was the movie The Predator. And that's how we ended up with 2 movies called Predator. Now, you might say that Predator and The Predator are 2 different names, and yes, technically they are, but come on. It's not like the there is contributing any kind of meaning. If you didn't know, how would you determine which should be called Predator and which one should be called The Predator? Even if you think you have a guess, hold on. Just you wait. Before we get started, I'll warn you that I will be spoiling these movies in as much as they can be spoiled, and they do contain a fair amount of gore. Nothing too extreme in my opinion, but there's still going to be blood and glow juice here. But with that out of the way, let's get started, as there can be only one Predator. Predator is a military thriller sci-fi horror film. A squad of ultra-macho mercs is sent into the jungle where they're picked off one by one by the technologically advanced and extremely lethal alien known only as the Predator. Now, even if you haven't seen this movie, there's a pretty good chance you already knew that. The Predator is a pretty iconic movie villain, and the powers that be have milked this franchise for all it's worth in its nearly 40 years. Even still, this movie has a trick or two up its sleeve. Rather than jump straight into the hunter-prey action with the Predator and the mercenaries, it starts off like a completely different movie, the whole military thriller side. Dutch and his mercenaries are hired by CIA agent Dylan to rescue a foreign cabinet member who was captured by guerrillas in nondescript Central America. Dylan joins them for this operation, and once they're on the trail of that cabinet member, they find a bunch of bodies skinned and hung up. Not only is this unusually grotesque for the guerrillas, but it turns out that these corpses are those of Green Berets, and the circumstances of their deaths just don't quite add up.
Can't believe that Jim Harper walked in an ambush.
I don't believe he did. I can't find a single track. Just doesn't make sense.
This is the first time that you and Dutch suspect something else might be going on, and the movie cements that suspicion by panning to the jungle and giving us our first look through the Predator's thermal vision. Other than that though, the movie proceeds as you'd expect of an action movie. They find the hostages just in time to see them get killed, and then hit the base with several minutes of explosive 80s action. This is really the only action scene in the traditional sense, so I think it's worth lingering here to talk about it. Personally, I really like it. First of all, it's paced very nicely. The entire sequence has a distinct beginning, middle, and end. First, Dutch does this extremely slick crawl, then he and his friends start stealthily picking off perimeter guards to give themselves the upper hand. But once he sets off a truck to explode, the action really kicks into gear and Dutch's crew start mowing down guerrillas left and right. Several minutes go by before the music even kicks in, at which point the guerrillas have been routed and Dutch's crew is basically just mopping up. The action itself is great. There are plenty of explosions with people doing fancy acrobatics away from them, and that's always fun. When people get shot, I don't know quite what it is, but there's something about the squibs that really makes it feel like there's something going through them. It's really smoky and not particularly bloody, but that really isn't a bad thing, and maybe part of what contributes to that feeling. I think what really sells the action here is that a lot of the time the shots of shooting include the shooter, their target, and the effect all at once. There's still plenty of sequences that intercut between the shooter and their target, and even those tend to be pretty effective in their own right, but there's a clear preference for including everything all in one shot. Once the camp is cleared, there's a big reveal. Dylan had sent those Green Berets from earlier, even though he denied it, and the cabinet member was largely unimportant.
It's all bullshit! All of it! The cabinet minister, the whole business!
The real mission was to thwart a Soviet invasion plan, and Dutch would never have accepted that mission, hence the phony story. With more guerrillas incoming, the crew decide to head for extraction, but Dylan insists on taking a captive guerrilla along. Now, if you didn't already know better, at this point in the movie, you might think all of its juice is in the military thriller side of things. You may even think that the occasional thermal vision and the skinned green berets could be related to a Soviet scheme or something. Except, even though I said it starts off like a completely different movie, it's actually completely untrue. Much like The Thing, Predator gives its own game away by showing you right in the opening shot that an alien has landed. So even before the Predator is properly revealed, you already know about it. Who killed and skinned and tied up the Green Berets? I'm guessing the alien from the intro. What's stalking them in the jungle? Oh, that'd be the alien from the intro. I feel like the mystery would have been built up much better without that opening shot, but it's kind of a moot point. By now, probably just about everyone who's going to watch this movie already knows exactly what the Predator is anyway. As the movie progresses, Billy, their expert tracker and pathfinder, becomes increasingly suspicious that something is stalking them.
There's something out there waiting for us. And it ain't no man.
Yeah, it's probably the alien, from the intro. Then, finally, the Predator strikes, halfway into the movie now. But of course, it picked two of them off when they were alone, meaning that the surviving commandos have no idea what they're up against, and their uncertainty, fear, and desperation grow from here on. The only one of them who really even has a guess is the gorilla, Anna.
El diablo cazador de hombres. The demon who makes trophies of man. We found them sometimes without their skin, and sometimes much, much worse. Only in the hottest years this happens.
Oh, shit. Anyway, other than that opening shot, I like how the movie transitions from one type of movie to another. This is something I see from time to time in fiction that I always really like, but if there's a word for it, I don't know it. It's not just a plot twist or a sudden escalation, it's something more specific than that. This movie starts off completely mundane, albeit intriguing. There's nothing particularly fantastical about a group of commandos being duped into doing the government's dirty work. But then, out of the blue, an alien is thrown into the mix. So the movie starts with a story that could plausibly take place in this real world, and then it smoothly transitions into a story that very much couldn't. And I love that kind of stuff. Now, as I've said before, horror movies don't really affect me, but I do get where this one is coming from. Obviously, part of the premise here is that Dutch and his pack of sweaty, jacked up pals are supposed to be, effectively, Earth's ultimate apex predators. And the horror of the movie is upending the usual comfort and security that comes with being apex predators. In a situation quite unusual for most humans, really, Dutch and his men have inadvertently found themselves in the hunting grounds of a much more dangerous predator, and they are now the weak and meek prey. And what better place to do this than behind enemy lines deep in the jungle, where all the comforts, stability, and security of home are but a distant memory. To really hammer that point, the movie spends a lot of time staring at vegetation. There are shots in here that are almost bizarre, panning to the foliage of the jungle as if it were a character. But in a way, it kind of is. Even before they learn they're being hunted, Dutch and his men are deep in hostile territory, so they have to be wary of anything and everything that could be hiding in the brush. The idea that danger could be lurking right there, just out of sight, obscured by the flora, is underscored again and again. But once the alien is revealed, or really the second time, because, the intro, I feel like the movie loses steam pretty rapidly. After the Predator kills Hawkins and Blaine, it seems like he just kinda gets bored. He doesn't even play with Mac and Dylan, just kind of kills them and moves on. Actually, there was a weird sort of anti-payoff there. After clearing the guerrilla camp, the Predator captures audio of Billy laughing and Mac whispering to Dylan.
Over here.
And then later, as Dylan follows after Mac in pursuit of the Predator, we hear Mac's whispers again.
Over here.
Now you might think that this is the Predator using the recording to lure Dylan into a trap, but no, it is actually Mac. And only after Dylan discovers Mac's corpse does the Predator mimic his voice.
Anytime.
Meaning that he could have used that recording, he just decided not to, but the movie wanted us to think that he was doing that, only to hit us with a fake out. All I can think is, what was the point of any of that? After unceremoniously killing Billy and Poncho and ignoring Anna, ostensibly because she's unarmed, the Predator's only remaining prey is Dutch. While fleeing for his life, Dutch gets covered in mud, inadvertently tricking the Predator's thermal vision. And in case you didn't catch that, Dutch uses his mud-covered fingers to scrape some mud off of his mud-covered shoulder, looks down at the mud on his already muddy hands, and says, out loud,
He couldn't see me.
"Oh." Using his newfound mud camouflage, Dutch can fight on slightly more even footing. Now the Predator can't see him, but he can see the Predator. But to be honest, I find the entire final sequence kind of boring. The movie doesn't really have any surprises left for us. Other than being muddy, Dutch doesn't pull out any new tricks or use any new tactics. He's just doing the same stuff from earlier, this time covered in mud. Same with the Predator. It kind of feels like the movie is just spinning its wheels until it's over. So what to make of Predator? To be totally honest, this one's kind of a mixed bag for me. I like how the story starts mundane and turns fantastical, and I like the action and effects, and I adore the cheesy credit sequence that makes it look like a sitcom. Also, holy crap, the sheer number of iconic lines.
Dylan! You son of a bitch. This stuff will make you a goddamn sexual tyrannosaurus. Just like me.
You're hit. You're bleeding, man.
I ain't got time to bleed.
You must have wounded it. Its blood was on the leaves.
If it bleeds, we can kill it.
Run! Go! Get to the chopper!
You one ugly motherfucker.
Come on, kill me! I'm here! Come on! Do it now! Kill me!
But I think the entire second half of the movie feels less like telling a story and more like going through the motions, and it makes the entire conclusion feel almost tedious. Now don't get me wrong, it's not like I didn't enjoy watching this movie. I definitely did. I mean, who doesn't want to see a bunch of jacked, sweaty, shirtless men play around in the jungle? But it doesn't blow my mind or make me sit up in my seat or raise my pulse or want to talk about it to a friend. It is a good movie, but it's not a great movie. At least, not in my opinion. The Predator is a sci-fi action movie and an absolute mess. It starts with two ships in space. One shoots at the other, and then the ship that's under fire opens a portal and crash lands on Earth. Down on Earth, some sniper guy shoots a nameless cartel man in the head for seemingly no reason, right as the alien ship crash lands on top of him. One of the sniper's squad mates finds him, then they discover the corpse of their other squad mate because he was killed off screen. Then the Predator shows up to kill the remaining squad mate on screen. Then the sniper immediately takes the Predator down because he was fiddling with one of the Predator's wrist guard things. Seriously, everything I've just described, from the spaceships in the opening to the Predator's defeat, pans out in about 5 minutes. Not exactly matching the slow buildup of the original. The Predator is picked up by government agent Traeger and taken back to a lab for study, where it promptly breaks out and starts murdering. Quinn, the sniper from before, was being brought there under guard, so he's around to see the Predator break out, and at this point the movie just gives up and stops bothering with a plot. Instead of a story, what follows is a series of loosely connected, very boring action scenes. The level of craft here compared to the original is just kind of sad. Not only is it cut to all hell, like the Doctor can't even jump without the movie cutting around it, but most of the action is either stand around and shoot ineffectually at something,
Let's take it down! Come on!
or run around and shoot ineffectually at something. And it really doesn't help that the audio design makes all of their weapons sound like paintball guns.
Hey, Doc! Come get my kid!
This scene in particular is just baffling. Two Predadogs show up, oh no, very threatening, and then the heroes show up and start shooting them, but like, the dogs just kind of stand there, and the heroes just kind of stand there too. Everybody's just kind of standing around, and nothing's really happening, and then the movie decides, yeah, that's enough, and the scene just kind of ends? It's bizarre. Most of the scenes, maybe all of them actually, either have a non-ending like that or an oh shit transition. Like, oh shit, a helicopter, or oh shit, the Predator, I guess that's supposed to keep the pace exciting, but it just feels simultaneously relentless and lazy. On a related note, an awful lot of the dialogue is just characters shouting each other's names. Or shouting, "Go, go, go!"
Roll out, let's go. Let's go. Move out, go. Let's go.
Now, originally I was going to put a supercut here of people shouting go, or run, or move, or whatever, but the sequence I just showed you was completely unedited, except for about 5 seconds of action that I removed from the middle, so yeah, that should give you an idea of why I decided against the supercut. Also, okay, this movie is called The Predator, right? The Predator. So naturally there are 2 predators. What the fuck? In addition to bad action, there are also lots of bad ideas on display. Just about the entire movie is tinged with ooh-ah jingoism from start to finish, because this badass macho sniper guy is so cool and a great soldier, and hell yeah, thank you for your service!
Department of Defense. He works for the government, does he?
Military designation. He kills people, so you can be a mailman.
Damn right. Thank you, Captain Quentin McKenna, for braining that one random cartel guy. If he had lived for even a second longer, I wouldn't be able to deliver my mail. I can't help but feel like this is a bit of a contrast from the original. The original film doesn't really linger on it for very long, but I'd say there's some pretty clear cynicism about military action and interventionism in that movie. And it's not just the friction between Dutch and Dylan. Arguably, the Predator showing up and doing whatever he wants, consequences be damned, in some ways parallels the US and Soviet meddling that kicks off the film. This movie has the main character's estranged wife literally say,
"So he might be a lousy husband, but he is a good soldier."
After reciting his military achievements like a Wikipedia summary.
He's a security counter sniper, Army Rangers. He supervised 23 close precision engagements across 5 continents, and he has 13 confirmed kills. And he is one of only 14 captains in the armed forces to ever receive a Distinguished Service Medal and the Silver Star.
Then there's Quinn's new squad after his original 2 buddies are turbo-murdered in the opening sequence. They're all members of the same PTSD group therapy, so naturally they've all been reduced to a single character trait. There's Baxley, who has the only kind of Tourette's that shows up in movies. And I'm sure this is merely coincidence, but his tics, particularly the swearing, only come up when they can be used for a joke. Next up is Coyle, Baxley's best friend, who can only communicate in misogynistic your mom jokes.
If your mom's vagina were a video game, it'd be rated E for everyone.
And then there's Nettles, who's, religious, I guess. McKenna's right-hand man, Nebraska Williams, is by far the richest character. He's suicidal, and he smokes. He also uses a fake name, because, get this, his real name?
Gaylord. That's a good call there. Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah, Gaylord. Get it? Gay Lord. That's why he calls himself Nebraska. Classic stuff. Oh, I almost forgot, there's also Lynch. He's British. Yeah, the movie largely forgets about him too. Probably worst of the bunch, however, is Quinn's son, Rory. Rory is autistic, which is fine, but he's specifically an autistic savant, and that's a trope that sucks. For one thing, I strongly suspect that the entire phenomenon of the autistic savant is completely fabricated. Sure, I have no doubt that there are autistic people who have incredible memory or a deep, intuitive understanding of some subject or another, but there are also allistic people like that too. I suspect that the only reason that the label autistic savant even gets used is because people equate autism with stupidity. And rather than having to acknowledge the inherent vileness and frankly flimsiness of concepts like IQ, it's much easier to wave it off as a weird, poorly understood phenomenon. Understanding autistic savants as an unexplained oxymoron actually reinforces the deeply flawed perspective that intelligence and stupidity are relevant and measurable characteristics of a person. Instead of saying, hey, being autistic is like fine and totally normal, because, it is, the movie is saying, sure, he's autistic, but in spite of that, he's very smart. And that's the part that I really dislike about it. The main way that sympathetic autistic characters are typically written is to make them geniuses. They can't just be autistic, they have to be a useful autist, which I think is a disgusting way of talking and thinking about, a human being. But the useful autist idea is sadly very widespread and is very relevant to this movie. See, I've said Rory is autistic, and he is, but the movie doesn't actually use the words autist, autistic, or autism. His autism gets labeled 3 times. First, some school bullies call him an Asperger, then the biologist says he's on the spectrum, and last, one of the soldiers refers to him with a slur for the purposes of a joke. The slur joke is obviously tasteless, it's kind of all there is to it. Saying he's on the spectrum is kind of whatever, but the Asperger's thing I want to dwell on for a moment. In case you aren't aware, Asperger's syndrome is named after Dr. Hans Asperger. He was an Austrian physician, and you might be interested in the particular year of publication for his work that describes the syndrome that's named after him. 1944. I wonder what was going on in Austria in the early 1940s. So yeah, the guy was a Nazi. His entire project was dividing autistic people into 2 groups. The useful autists, and the autists to be exterminated. Nowadays, the term Asperger's is widely considered antiquated, but not because the idea is bad, it's just been replaced by the sanitized term high-functioning autism, which really is just another way of saying useful autist. This is what I mean. Instead of saying, maybe that Nazi doctor actually wasn't onto something when he decided to separate autistic people based on usefulness, the world has preferred to just shrug. The movie actually takes it one step further. Not only is Rory a useful autist, but actually, useful autism is the next step in evolution.
Being on the spectrum isn't really a disorder. It's actually the next step in the evolutionary chain.
Seriously, what the fuck? I don't think I can properly articulate why this pisses me off so much, but I'll try my best. Look, autistic people exist, right? And it's a-okay. It's normal. There's nothing wrong with autistic people. You don't have to justify their existence. And you certainly don't have to justify their existence in eugenic terms. Affirming their right to exist by saying that actually they're an evolutionary advantage is such a deep-rooted commitment to the useful autist bullshit I find absolutely appalling. Fuck! And you know what? Once again, it doesn't even make any damn sense in the context of this franchise. The original movie is all about how those shredded, sweaty hunks turned into fucking pathetic shits because of the Predator. An alien that doesn't have an evolutionary advantage, just a technological one. If these guys aren't good enough specimens, who the hell is? And when Dutch does defeat the Predator, it's not because he was faster, stronger, smarter. No, it's just because he had time to prepare and planned for every contingency, and he literally fell face first into a key component to his victory, and he got lucky that the Predator was getting bored and decided to engage in a fist fight instead of just killing him. None of that is genetic. In a significant, if subtextual way, the original Predator is pretty clearly anti-eugenic. Now, when this movie isn't flying directly in the face of the themes of the original, it does occasionally steal from it in acts of thoughtless self-advertisement.
Get to the choppers!
Ah, see? Because it's like that thing we had seen before. You know? In the first one. Yeah.
You're one beautiful motherfucker.
Ah, get it? Because yeah, nice. Yeah, in the future, movies will just be composed of sound clips from other movies.
B, you gotta calm down right now.
I'm perfectly calm, dude.
Oh. Oh. To make up for its lack of story, the movie offers plenty of new, hot lore. The dreadlocks? Yeah, that's not just hair. Those are receptors.
Doc, the dreads. What's that all about?
I don't know, maybe like sensory receptors?
Yep. The obsession with spines? They're not just trophies. They're collecting the DNA from spinal fluids for science.
Remember how I told you how they take people's spines, right? From the strongest, smartest, most dangerous species on every planet they visit.
Collecting survival traits from the most high-end specimens.
The whole thing with the heat? Yeah, Wait.
How long before climate change renders this planet unlivable? They thrive in a hothouse environment. Maybe they'll want to move into ours.
They're trying to snap up all of our best DNA before we're gone.
Adapt themselves with it and then move in.
I called it? I fucking called it! I said it as a joke, and they did it for real! That's amazing, actually. But wait, there's more. Like, maybe you're wondering who this biologist is and why she's even involved. Okay, you probably weren't wondering that and you couldn't care less, but you haven't heard the answer yet.
I wrote a letter to the president when I was 6. Told him how much I loved animals and that if NASA ever found a space animal, they should call me. I was put on a short list for a paper I wrote on hybrid strains. Computer cross-referenced the letter, and here I am.
Yep, that's not a joke. The movie offers no other information, and the circumstances of her recruitment strongly imply that that's the whole truth of it. And then when she's brought in for the first time...
Is it just your imagination, or is this haunted room actually stretching?
Every fucking time?
Watch how she reacts to just, like, a stick with a bit of metal on the wall.
Holy shit. That's alien technology.
And then a few minutes later...
This specimen has...
Human DNA.
Yes. The red wolf is known to be a hybrid between the coyote and the gray wolf.
Possibly some form of recombinant technology.
Guys, I get it. I get it. You want to know if someone fucked an alien?
Yeah.
Wait, is this movie secretly brilliant? When the Predator attacks this military site, 3 of the soldiers, and only 3 of them, decide to hop in a jeep, presumably to escape, but the Predator uses its rope under tension to decapitate all of them as they drive past, causing their jeep to ram into the electrical fence and, of course, explode. That jeep was the only open-top vehicle around. Then, after the Predator walks past, the heroes try to get in a car to escape, but uh-oh.
Son of a bitch, he must have hacked the vehicles.
Yep, he must have hacked the vehicles. This movie is astonishing. Remember Coyle and Baxley, the best friends? Well, they both get mortally wounded by the Predator at the same time, and in a bizarre but amazing mashup of the creation of Adam and Dear Sister, they both draw their pistols to mercy kill each other at the same time. I particularly like how the movie doesn't actually show them unholstering and drawing their pistols, they just appear drawn and aimed in the next shot. Sterling K. Brown as Traeger is particularly mesmerizing, and he clearly belongs to a much better movie.
Why do you call it the Predator?
It tracks its prey, exploits weakness, seems to, well, enjoy it.
That's not a predator, that's a sports hunter.
Well, we took a vote. Predator's cooler, right? Fuck yeah.
Seriously, his performance is just over the top, right where it should be.
What the hell's inside there?
It's property of Project Stargazer, that's what the fuck it is.
Unfortunately, the movie does him dirty. Later in the movie, he decides to join McKenna to try to kill the Predator. No, not that one. The Predator. And he equips a Predator's shoulder-mounted plasma cannon to fight with. During the fight, the biologist randomly calls out his name for no apparent reason. Traeger! And when he turns to look at her, causing the gun to point at its own head, it fires. Also for no apparent reason. And he falls over dead. It's kind of a blink-and-you-miss-it moment, and completely unmotivated, which is pretty strange for the character who is arguably more of an antagonist than the Predators are. Speaking of which, the movie does explain why there are 2 Predators. It turns out that one of them is like an uber predator, jacked up with loads of different species' DNA, which is why he's huge. The other one is a predator who has, I guess, defied the uber predator regime and has come to Earth to help us. Remember the whole climate change thing?
Now, Thing 1, as you call them, arrived in a hijacked spacecraft. We think there's something on it. Something he didn't want his enemies to have.
So he brought some, gift for the human race?
Wait. The Predator came to Earth to help us. That Predator came to Earth to help us. Literally the first thing he did was kill 2 people. But he's here to help. Okay. Also, it kind of sounded like he was going to help us out with the whole climate change thing. I mean, that's the existential threat here, right?
How long before climate change renders this planet unlivable? 2 generations? 1?
No? Oh, he's delivered us a suit called the Predator Killer. This is a bit like if your home was on fire and your neighbor came over and said, "Oh no, don't worry, I got just the thing. Don't even bother calling the fire department." And then they run off and then come back and hand you a gun and say, "Here, just in case someone tries to burgle you." And they go back to bed. Like, thanks? But I feel like I have a more pressing issue right now. And just so we're clear, this Predator, this one right here, wanted to give us a weapon that we could use to kill predators. Right. And because it just can't help itself, the movie ends with the protagonist becoming a decorated national hero, because the government's the good guys here, and this secret US government agency are also the good guys. And look, our little useful autist is now being used for child labor.
Pretty cool, huh?
Pretty cool. You got your own desk. I'll make sure I tell Mom.
Yay? So what to make of The Predator? Well, I think it's fucking shit. The pacing is all over the place, the action is sloppy and hard to follow, the dialogue is mostly garbage, and the plot is complete nonsense. And if we're being totally honest, the entire thing is clearly engineered as nothing more than an advertisement. Sometimes it's an advertisement for the original movie, and other times it's an advertisement for the never-developed sequel. It also peddles some absolutely vile jingoist and eugenic filth, which, if nothing else could be said about it, definitely run counter to the themes of the original. Clearly, if the filmmakers did have any kind of understanding of what made the original film work, they had no interest in trying to tap into that for this movie. But I gotta be honest, there were glimpses of a great movie that it could have been. Very, very different from the original Predator, for sure. But there were hints of a fantastic, just over-the-top action comedy movie in there.
Everything okay back there?
You fucking guys.
Unfortunately, they were only glimpses. Small, fleeting moments that are drowned out by the deluge of crap. Well, there we have it. We've seen what the Predators are offering. So, which one's better? It's the original. I think that's pretty obvious. The new movie has its moments, but those seem like flukes. Even if the original doesn't really do it for me personally, it's hard not to appreciate the confident and seamless marriage of action thriller and slasher flick. So, what should The Predator be called? Well, putting aside the fact that I think the entire movie should be consigned to the trash heap, I think a name that clearly fits both thematically and narratively is Predator Evolved. And it's doubly a shame that it wasn't called that, really, because that name for a failed attempt to revive the franchise would have been deliciously ironic. You know what? We have time. I'm going to talk about Prey, just as a little bonus Halloween treat. Once again, light spoilers and plenty of gore ahead, but this one's just for fun. No ranking or renaming or anything. Alright, let's get into it. Prey is the third and most recent attempt to reboot the Predator franchise. It's also been by far the most successful. Now, I do want to talk about it, but I'm gonna keep it brief because I don't really think there's actually that much to say, other than to talk about how it deviates from the original movie. See, every Predator movie after the original decided to run in completely different directions. Predator 2 is an over-the-top cop action movie, Predators is an extremely drab slog of gruff guys mumbling cliches at each other.
Better on my own.
And The Predator is a lot of people standing around and half-assedly shooting at stuff. As it happens, Prey was actually the first Predator movie that I had seen, and it was what pushed me to finally watch all the others. But it's also the only sequel that actually stuck close to the original formula, albeit with some tweaks. Weirdly, much like the first Prey game, this movie, Prey, is also about Native Americans fighting back against extraterrestrial invaders, even though the movie and the game aren't actually related. But the movie makes the connection between the alien invader from space and the alien invaders from Europe much more explicit. In fact, there are several cues that the original Predator movie used that are repurposed in Prey. For example, Naru finds a herd of buffalo that have been skinned and left to rot in a scene that's strongly reminiscent of when Dutch finds the Green Berets that were skinned and left to rot. In that movie, it's hinting at the Predator, but in this movie, it's hinting at the French. As for the French themselves, the movie offers a sort of inversion of the usual European settler characterization. They're portrayed as filthy, cruel, violent, and clueless, and those are all the quote-unquote savage qualities that imperialists have tried so hard to tie to indigenous people. They also speak unintelligibly, although that particular effect is lost on you if you actually understand French. The action in the movie is pretty darn good. The choreography is really nice, though a lot of the hits are indicated with audio, so watching it back without sound makes it harder to follow. In general, there's a certain efficiency and economy to everything that Naru does that I find very satisfying. Like, at one point her hands are bound, and rather than doing the typical back and forth sawing action that you've probably seen 1,000 times by now, she just lines her axe up and good to go. Speaking of which, in the beginning of the film, Naru ties a rope to her axe, and subsequently there's a lot of axe throwing and retrieving, and it looks great on camera. As for the Predator, the violence is suitably gory, but a lot of it is, well, not implied exactly, but just off-screen. I think this works really well. Not only do you appease the sickos like me that want the goop, but you also avoid the difficulty and presumably the cost of trying to create convincing effects. Also, some of it makes for nice dark comedy beats. The Predator kicking the French settlers' asses is a deeply funny sequence. It's not just funny, though. The Predator uses his full arsenal against the French, and Naru is there to see it. Plot-wise, I think this is the greatest improvement from the original movie. In the original, Dutch at one point just confidently claims that if Anna never arms herself, the Predator will be uninterested in hunting her, even though he has absolutely no reason to believe that.
Don't! Leave it! He didn't kill you because you weren't armed. No sport.
Though admittedly he must not trust that hunch too strongly, or else he would just disarm himself, but still. And like I had mentioned, when he finally faces off against the Predator, he's not really doing anything clever to combat the Predator's weaknesses. In contrast, Naru slowly but surely learns more and more about the Predator throughout the movie, not just about its arsenal, but also about what it's here to do, and about its reliance on thermal vision. The result is that the final fight is much more of a problem-solving extravaganza, as she ties together the accumulation of knowledge to hit the Predator in his weak spots over and over and over until finally defeating him. That actually ties very nicely into a theme that's present throughout the entire movie, which is basically that people underestimate Naru and get killed for it. Like, Wasape underestimates Naru because she's a woman.
Who invited you? We won't be gone long enough to need a cook.
So he ignores her when she's trying to warn him about the Predator, and you can see how that turns out. The French underestimate Naru because they think she's an idiot savage.
Idiot! Sauvage!
Yeah, see? But Naru uses that against them.
You can't see, but I'm killing you.
And to some extent, the Predator also underestimates her. He and Naru first see each other when he inadvertently saves her from being mauled to death by a bear, and at this point he basically regards her the same way that you or I might regard ants. Also, this shot is absolutely sick, and while it is lifted from The Predator, it makes way more sense here and is way more cool. Anyway, the Predator later spares Naru when she's injured and rendered harmless by a French snare, and near the end, he seems to hesitate to kill her even as she points a gun at him. And after Naru is done exploiting the Predator's tendency to overlook her, well, he's not gonna be in Prey 2. So what to make of Prey? Well, if you're only gonna watch one Predator movie, I'd say it should be this one. Particularly if you, like me, are kind of spoiled by modern production quality and aesthetics. It's a great looking movie, good action, good plot, and the story's exactly what it should be. For a movie that's just supposed to be a fun romp about someone fending off an alien invader, it's kind of hard to beat. Once again, we have a handful of single word names, and I think they all suck, but this time around, I'm really struggling to come up with better names for them. It's kind of a lot of work. So fine. Predator, Prey, you win. Alright, that's it. Thanks for watching. Tune in next time for episode 13. Okay, so the Predator can only see in thermal vision, right? And yet, his first kill once he gets onto the planet is a snake. A snake. They're cold-blooded. Fucking unwatchable.